Hey homies, it's Zach, Ohio Skater. I think I got an interesting video here for you today. So this is gonna be about some movies I have in my movie collection. But it's all the sort of classics that I own, or by far most of them at least. But the ones that I found real quick to show you guys. But I have a lot of classic type movies. Most of my movies are from the current day, like 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. But I like the classics too. There's some classics that I like. There's some classics that I have in my collection, and I definitely recommend all these. They sort of helped make cinema what it is today, and they're definitely worth going back to. And they're just all around cool. And yeah, so I think it's important to watch things that have watch and listen to things that from a long time ago, to see where we get a lot of the stuff we do today, to see how it developed and evolved, and it's kind of a look at history. These are fictional stories, but it sort of gives you a peep into history, because stories are created with the audience in mind, and you gotta put yourself in the head of like the audience back then, what was happening in history, and what would make the creator think that this audience would like to see this at that point in time in this part of history. So that's also why I think it's interesting. And yeah, they're more like primitive style of movies. Movies haven't really been around for a long time, like a little over 100 years probably, but so this is like primitive style cinema, but well, more advanced than the very beginnings, but you'll see what I mean. But it's still, the stories are still great. The stories are classic. The stories are entertaining, and I think they were able to do a lot of things back then that might amaze people from this day and age. Like, wow, they were able to do that back then. Like, actually make a movie with that in it back then. Like, you might be surprised. But anyway, these are all really good movies, and I'm gonna get into it right now. So, first off, we have my Bruce Lee collection. So this has 5 Bruce Lee movies in it. The biggest movies Bruce Lee was in before he died. And it's a Criterion collection thing. They have they sell like classic movies. It's called the Criterion collection. They're a little expensive, but it's like all the classics. Yeah, so I mean, it's got The Big Boss, Fists of Fury, The Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, Game of Death. These were all released between 1971 and 1978, and it's classic kung fu style. Like they're kung fu movies, but they're the OG kung fu movies, and it's the blueprint for the kung fu genre even today, I believe. It's like it's set out all the main ways of doing things and the main types of stories, and it still has influence to this day in kung fu movies to this day. Bruce Lee is a legend. He's a classic. He's the first real kung fu star in America that came to America and brought the kung fu genre to America. So really cool. Anyway, the next one is my James Bond collection. So this one is like all the James Bond movies, but there's a couple it doesn't include. 2 of the most recent ones, which are Spectre and No Time to Die. This one includes everyone other than those 2, so I got this one too. But this one isn't really what we're talking about, because these are the new ones. But these have all the OG James Bond movies, and they were released from, James Bond has been going on from 1962 to 2021, so that's a long time. There's 27 James Bond movies, last I Googled. So you have some from the 60s, some from the 70s, some from the 80s. They get different actors for every different period of time when they start a new James Bond series. But yeah, if you don't know what James Bond is, which I would be surprised if you didn't know what James Bond is, but he's a British Secret Service agent, and he goes all around the world. It shows all these cool places, and he goes on all sorts of missions, spy missions, And just like Bruce Lee was the blueprint for kung fu movies, this is the blueprint for spy movies, basically spy action movies. It's just as iconic as Bruce Lee. Both the Bruce Lee collection and all the James Bond movies, these are iconic movies. These are classic. These are super classics in my opinion. These are the classics that everyone knows about, but few have really actually gone back and watched them, and I encourage you to. They're really cool, and you'll see a lot of resemblances between the types of stories they tell back then, the types of stories we see today. You'll see the differences, but you'll see how this influenced these types of movies today. So, and then I have another Criterion Collection movie, but this is just one movie. It's The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. And it came out in 1965, and this is a classic. This is a classic Cold War story. Like they had this genre of like Cold War movies back in the day, like when the Cold War was going on. I mean, this is 1965, one of the intense periods of the Cold War, and audiences really wanted to see stories about the Cold War, you know, and I've always found the Cold War to be very interesting. It's very interesting to read the history of the Cold War, and it's really cool. So this is about a Cold War spy he's undercover for like America. I think it's like America or UK. It's America, I think, but he's pretending he's like British or something. But it takes place, he's pretending he's a defector, basically, in East Germany. But he has one last dangerous mission, and you'll see what happens throughout the mission, but the ending is very sad. So it's kind of a doomer type of movie, but the ending is very sad. But it's a classic. This is a classic of the old school Cold War genre, definitely. So check it out. And then we have another classic from the old school Cold War genre, The Manchurian Candidate. This is another classic old school Cold War movie. It came out in 1962, neo-noir political thriller, you know. And the story is about a Korean war vet, and while he's over there at war, whatever, he gets brainwashed by communists. And the part where where the communists are talking about like brainwashing techniques, and in the flashbacks he gets, and the different, it's very strange and it's very trippy, you know. But it kind of makes communism look like really mysterious, you know what I'm saying? Like really scary and mysterious. But yeah, so he gets brainwashed and he goes back to America, and he becomes like a communist assassin, and he tries to kill a presidential candidate in America. So The Manchurian Candidate, another classic Cold War movie from 1962. Definitely check it out. So, and then we're moving on here to like the 80s. You have Streets of Fire. Streets of Fire. It's really interesting. 1984. It's a really cool over-the-top kind of movie, and we're gonna get into some other movies like this, like really over-the-top 80s action movies, like, and these are like cult classics often, and they're really entertaining. It's full of rock and roll aesthetics, and it involves a biker gang and a kidnapping and a mission to rescue this woman that was kidnapped. And it has super 80s vibes, hella 80s vibes. I mean, but it's not a super serious movie, but it's like that kind of goes along with the 80s vibes. If you think about it, the 80s were a time of like fun and partying and stuff like that, and for a lot of people, and people just wanted to see like over the top kind of entertaining stuff, not super serious, you know. So this is that type of movie. And then another one like that is Escape from New York. This is another good 80s cult classic type of action movie. It's very cool. It came out in 1981, and in this movie, Manhattan is turned into one giant prison. So the whole city of Manhattan, or the borough of New York City, which is Manhattan, becomes one giant prison. And it doesn't have like cells or anything where they live in cells and stuff, but they just put them there as like where the criminals will live, you know. And it's all run down and it's walled in, and only criminals live there. But it's got this criminal underworld throughout the city, you know. And he goes throughout the city and spots all these criminals in this like dystopian type of environment. And it's another cult classic. And so the president crash lands in the city, and a former special forces guy has to go in and find him, and he meets all these gangsters and criminals, and has some fights, and it's very entertaining. So yeah. And then we have the sequel to Escape from New York, which is Escape from LA. This is the sequel, which actually came out a long time after Escape from New York. Escape from New York came out in 1981. This came out in 1996, Escape from LA. But it's also good. It's obviously the sequel to Escape from New York, 1996. And the Special Forces guy's back. He's back, the same guy. And he has to go on a mission in LA this time, on the other side of the country, the West Coast this time. LA is hit by an earthquake, and he has to go retrieve a doomsday device that is caught in the rubble, like, of the LA earthquake, you know? And it's just as good as Escape from New York. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it is, but it's just as classic. It's part of the series, so there you go. And another classic LA movie, another cult classic is LA Bounty. You can't really see because the tag that when I bought it, you know, but this is LA Bounty. Another 80s cult classic, came out in 1985, and it stars this woman, and I guess she was like a cult classic actress. She was in a lot of cult classics from around that time, but she's a badass woman who is an ex-cop turned bounty hunter, and she goes after this guy. He's like an artist, so you see him making art or whatever, but he's a psychotic artist. He's crazy, you know. He's super eccentric, but like in an evil type of way, like an eccentric artist, but like an evil eccentric artist. And he's a drug dealer, and he killed her partner, and he kidnapped an LA mayoral candidate. And there's lots of cool action, and there's a theme in all these classic 80s action movies, just over-the-top action, over-the-top characters, over-the-top situations, and it's very entertaining. I love these type of movies, and I think you'd be interested in them if you're into the 80s stuff and action movies, and it's just super cool. You know, it's trippy kind of stuff, these type of movies, you know, I think, so, yeah. And the other one is a 1987 movie called Surf Nazis Must Die. Yes, Surf Nazis Must Die. So this is a movie about Nazis or whatever, but it's not pro-Nazi or anything, but it's about a gang of Nazi surfers. And a lot of different types of gangs in this movie that are interesting, and they all have different things about them. Like there's like a skateboarding gang of like young kids, which is the one I found the most coolest because I was a young skater at one time, and they're really cool. And they're not Nazis. Those kids aren't Nazis, but there's an apocalyptic natural disaster that has left the city run by gangs, and they battle for the control of the beach. And there's an old black woman who's the one that chases down the Nazis, and it's hilarious. It's very funny. It's, again, very over the top, and I think it's enjoyable. It's so crazy that it's enjoyable, you know, and it goes along with those other 80s movies I was talking about, definitely. So, yeah. Next one is another series, Beverly Hills Cop. There's 3 movies. Well, they came out with a new one on like Netflix or whatever kind of recently, but the original series has 3 movies. It's a trilogy, Beverly Hills Cop. And these went from 1984 to 1994, so sort of 80s and 90s, starring Eddie Murphy, and he plays a cop from Detroit. And he goes out to Beverly Hills because there's like a crime in Detroit that links to Beverly Hills. But he makes friends in Beverly Hills, and he keeps going back, obviously. And it's funny, and it's clever, and it's got a lot of good action, and it's a classic. If you haven't heard of it, I mean, I can't believe you haven't heard of it. It's one of those like mega classics again, like, you know what I'm saying, like one of those really, really well-known classics, and it's good. And that leads to another similar type of movie series, which is the Lethal Weapon series. Lethal Weapon. I have all the Lethal Weapon movies 1 through 4, and it's a similar 80s cop movie, and also takes place in Los Angeles. So, you know, but it's an action comedy. It's a buddy cop film, and they're 2 LA police detectives, and throughout the series there's various different crimes, but it's always good. And again, classic 80s vibes. You know, and if you haven't heard of this one's a little less well known than Beverly Hills Cop, but if you haven't heard of this, still I can't believe it. But because if you watch Always Sunny, you've definitely heard of it. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they make their own like sequels to Lethal Weapon. You know, that's what got me to want to watch it originally when I saw that in Always Sunny. It's classic, you know. So, and then the last movie I'm going to talk about is actually a 90s movie. It takes place in 1991, and it's another Criterion classic. It's Slacker, very good movie. It takes place in Austin, Texas, and it's one of those type of movies that that follows like lots of different random people around throughout each scene. Like it goes from one scene where it's like one story, and then it goes to the next scene. It's a completely different story, and they kind of lead into each other. But there's no one main plot. It's just general different scenes, short story scenes throughout the whole movie. Yeah, and but it's like it's kind of about like the OG hipsters, like the hipster style you see today. This is where that shit came from, that type of vibe. That's how these people in this movie are. It's from 1991, and I don't know if people were really using the word hipster back in 1991. I'm not that old, but it's where that vibe comes from, these type of people that it follows. But they have a lot of interesting conversations and a lot of different interesting situations, and it helps you get to know the city of Austin. It goes all around the city of Austin, and it's very, very cool to get to know the setting, and it's a very different type of movie, but very good, very entertaining, weird but cool. A lot of these movies I'm talking about are weird but cool. That's kind of my style. But yeah, that's the last movie I'm going to talk about. So these are my classics, and if you have any classic type of movies, like really old school OG type of movies, comment in the description about ones you like or ones you own or ones you think are cool and ones you think I should check out. But these are all classics that I own, and I thought I'd make a video of the classics because nothing beats the classics. Like I said, you get to see what we have today, where it came from, and all the different ways in which the past has influenced the present, and you get a glimpse into history, and it's really, these movies are all really entertaining. So yeah, thought that would be a cool video to make. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to say, but until the next video, peace.